Hi, I'm Stephen Stamp. I'm the editor for Inside Lacrosse's IL Indoor site, and I'm really enjoying the genesis of Inside the World of Box Lacrosse with Adam Levy and Greg Beecher here on Blue Squatch Productions. Thanks for being with us. Check out the link to the full show below. We have some great topics to get to today. We're going to be taking a look at the Georgia Swarm as they prepare for their season. We're going to be taking a look at how the rookies have done. We talked about the Rookie of the Year candidates last week. How were Dyson Williams and Brendan O'Neill and the rest of this great class? We're going to get to a talk in the awards section about the Transition Player of the Year contenders. Have they changed since we put in our votes last week on IL Indoor? And first off, we're going to get to the Buffalo Bandits, defending two-time champions for the NLL Cup, are on the floor for the first time this season in a huge rivalry game against the 1-0 Rochester Nighthawks. And that's where we're starting with the Bandits and Nighthawks. Adam, what are you looking forward to in this matchup?
Well, I think it's going to be very exciting. And Stamper and Greg, so excited to be back for another episode of Inside the World of Box Lacrosse. But yeah, it's going to be a very exciting game. I think that we saw a lot of the same things that we were hoping to see from Rochester last weekend that we saw from them last season, especially with that explosive offense. I mean, Ryan Smith, unbelievable again, his 5 goals. Connor Fields, I had put out a tweet about this at Adam Levy Lax, as you can see down below, where Connor Fields was one of the only, I think, the 23rd person ever to have a 10-10 game, 10 points and 10 loose balls. Add in the caused turnover, 1 of 6 to do that. So he was phenomenal. Ryan Lanchberry continuing his success. I have to say that it's great to see Riley Hutchcraft, Rylan Hartley and Riley Hutchcraft get those. It's a bit of a tongue twister, but Riley Hutchcraft.
You throw in Riley Grease?
Exactly.
Yeah, I know.
But to see Riley get that win, it was a tough fought game, especially down the stretch there. I know Jack Hanna was putting the team on his shoulders, Casey Jackson as well. So it was nice to see Hutchcraft really pull that out. You'd like to see the defense, maybe cut that 12 goals down a little bit more. Defense and transition were big issues for Rochester last season. So bringing that down a little bit more will be important for them, but that will be very tough against Buffalo, the defending champs, as you mentioned. So it'll be a tough fought game, but Buffalo is, they're going for the historic three-peat. Do you think it's going to happen?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's so hard to do. It's only happened once, of course. That was Rochester themselves, the earlier incarnation of the team back in 12-14. I think the really fascinating thing with Buffalo is they seem to be a little healthier this year coming into the season than they were at the beginning of last year. Their defense was really, I remember talking to Steve Criollo about it later in the season. He said, we're finally coming together as they're in the playoffs, because he said, we've never had the same lineup of guys on defense the whole season. They've still got Bryce Sweeting, not quite ready to come back, but they're expecting him back soon as well. But, guys that were dinged up are healthy now. Matt Spanger is back in the lineup, which is huge for them. It looks like they are pretty much ready to go. Dylan Robinson, who was nicked up a bit, he's back. So a lot of guys. They brought in Thomas Whitty. To me, one of the interesting things, Adam, about the Bandits is they have 6 righty forwards on the active roster right now. Only 2 lefties. They had a bunch of guys in camp. They had Kellen Pulera. They had Tate Catoni. None of them around. They've got Josh Byrne and Chris Kluche. That's a pretty good start on your left side, obviously. But what do? Are you just going strong right all the time? Or, and this is one, the Transition Player of the Year, Ian McKay, does stay up and play offense sometimes. Is he going to be playing more offensive shifts for the Bandits?
That would be interesting, and I know we're going to talk about Transition Players of the Year coming up. But yes, if Ian was to do that and rack up more points, I think he's definitely, again, making that incredible case. Now, I would say for most teams, that might be an issue, the disparity of the right and the left. But when we look at that Buffalo Bandits offense as a whole, I mean, they are just stacked with talent. And when you've got Josh Byrne and Dane Smith, Chase Frazier, you mentioned Kluche, Tahoka, these guys are just so talented. And I think that it doesn't really matter who plays where. And then if you got Ian McKay coming up, I think it's going to be fantastic. But the health issues were a big thing last year. So starting off strong, which they weren't able to do last year, if they can do that this year, it puts them in a great position to succeed.
On that right side, though, I mean, obviously you've got Dane Smith, Kyle Buchanan, Hogan Antikoke, and Chase Fraser are your returning guys. You've got Sam LaRue's an up-and-comer. They've had him in the system for a couple of years. And Lucas Nielsen, their first-round pick from New West, who's come in. They're all active. Do LaRue and Nielsen just sit for games right now while you play? I can't imagine that Smith, Buchanan, Antikoke, or Fraser is sitting out games. So how do you work those guys into the lineup?
Yeah, I think and we're actually kind of seeing this across the league. I think guys who are sitting out. You even saw that a little bit with Brennan O'Neill during the Philadelphia Wings San Diego Seals game. With the Panther City dispersal draft and all these teams getting that much better, the competition has risen tremendously. Now, being a former Vancouverite and having seen Lucas play in person and having spoken to his brother, Tyson, I think that, I would love to see Lucas do well. Obviously, a first-round pick. Buffalo has high hopes for him, but with the roster that they have, there's no need to rush him. Kind of ease him into it. He'll get the experience, whether it's during practice, training, the training camp that he had from those more veteran guys. I don't think there's any need to rush or put pressure on those young guys because the team is so set offensively.
You mentioned Panther City. I'm trying to see who Buffalo even got in the Panther City dispersal. They traded their pick in the first round to Philadelphia.
Well, there you go.
And that was the pick they used to get. They got a 2025 second rounder for that pick, and the second round they passed. So they didn't actually get any from PCLC, but
there you go.
I don't know. I don't even know where they needed someone, and that makes me think. Okay, who did Rochester get in that dispersal draft?
Who is that? Do you have that up there?
Josh Medeiros.
Yeah, I think he's going to be valuable for them for sure. A big team guy can do so much all over the floor. I think that's going to be a fantastic grab for them. And when we talk about the defense in transition and, stopping goals, I think that he's going to be a big part of that.
My question for you guys, though, uneducated though, is honestly, do you think Hutchcraft played that good because it was against Vegas, or do you think Hutchcraft can play that good against Buffalo? I guess, however you want to phrase it, that's what I would really kind of like to know on this topic. I think that answers most of the questions for the game, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, Riley Hutchcraft, I think he's a good goalie. He's been around for a while. He's got some experience. He's never quite taken the ball and run with it as a starter. And I think he needs to prove that. Last year with Rylan Hartley out with his injuries, I think Hutchcraft got a chance to start quite a bit and had some really good games. He also had some shaky games, which is the nature of goaltending, but he hasn't proven yet that he's the guy to go to it. And I don't know when Rylan Hartley is back either.
Yeah, and I actually plan on talking to Coach Hazen actually tomorrow, and so I'm excited. I should say I'm excited, but I'm interested to hear what he has to say about Hartley because it was unfortunate to see Hartley miss another game. Obviously, this team has come into this year after last year and the way that Hartley finished off the season. They were hoping he'd be back, so it'll be good to get an update on that as soon as possible.
And does Kevin Harleman get a chance at some point to start? I don't know. The other thing, Adam, that we've talked about, and we talk a lot, and we have to try and save some of it for the show, but we were talking about the transition game for these two teams. Ian McKay, the transition player of the year. They've got, Nick Weiss had a great transition season. Steve Priolo's always a threat. Buffalo's so challenging transition. For Rochester, you've got, Medeiros is going to add a lot. You've got Ryland Rees and Brad Gillies and Ethan O'Connor and Taylor Jensen, a real up-and-comer, and Matt Gilray, a guy who I think finally last year started to get the recognition he deserved. It's so interesting to me, Gilray and McKay, who were the third and fourth picks, respectively, in the entry draft several years ago now. And I remember I had that draft. That was I had the first two picks nailed. And then I had those two reversed. I thought they'd take McKay and then Gilray because it was Buffalo with both picks. So they took them back to back. So I think that's a fascinating comparison because they were both with Canada, won gold medals this year. They're two of the top transition guys in the league. Both can stay up and play offense. That to me is a fascinating pair to look at.
Yeah, and I believe the NLL had them, the coaches and GMs had them both in the top 5 in terms of transition players, and rightfully so. It'll be very interesting to see how they match up. I'm interested. I was looking back at my pick for transition player of the year, and I've always been a Mike Messenger fan, and I think that's why I went with him. But Ian McKay would have been my second choice at the time, mostly because he's another one of those guys that, yes, he's now getting the recognition, but he does so much more and deserves so much praise. Yeah. It's going to be so interesting to see how he goes up against that Rochester defense and how they kind of try and shut him down. But Ian McKay really is, I think, one of the most versatile, should be most respected transition players in this league. And I have no doubt that he will be a finalist or close to it, maybe even a winner of Transition Player of the Year this year. So that wraps it up for this segment. That's our inside scoop for the Rochester Buffalo preview. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. For Stamper, Greg Beecher, I'm Adam Levy. For Inside the World of Box Lacrosse, make sure to check out the entire episode on Blue Squatch's YouTube.